Hey, good morning, local colleagues from around California. Welcome back for our 27th meeting of the California Climate and Energy Collaborative's Learn Calls, our local energy resources network. And just wanted to wish you a happy Valentine's Eve. Our love language is funding on these calls. I am showcasing the beautiful San Gabriel Mountains right now. This is right behind where I live in Claremont, and it is lovely around the LA area. Hopefully lovely where you are. After lots of snow, I want to encourage everybody, if you want to turn your webcams on, we'd love to see you, and please introduce yourself over chat. We'd love to hear from you. We've got, we'll go to the next slide. We've got a packed meeting, a good one, I think, as usual. I'll start with my introduction. I'm Angie Hacker, the SEEK Statewide Best Practices Coordinator, and I'm joined today by a couple of members of the SEEK team, John Vandervoort, Tila Combs, and I'll invite them to say hello over chat. You can always contact them if you need anything during these calls. These monthly meetings that we've been doing for over a couple of years now are designed to provide a space for local governments and those that work with them to dive in on programs and opportunities that can help you advance your energy and climate goals. So you guys are busy. Let us go ahead and run through a bunch of opportunities for you. So we'll do that like we always do today with one spotlight. I want to highlight for you one program. The majority of our call today is going to be in a panel format with some featured guests. So we actually are super lucky. We have a representative from each of the 4 active state regional energy networks, and each of them are running a different kind of program that's called NMEC, and they're going to tell us all about what normalized metered energy consumption programs look like and how it's working for them. We'll have a few minutes at the end for a little workshop where we want to let you know a little bit more about an opportunity to help inform CARB's research. And as always, we have this extra 15-minute bonus breakout at the end so we can kind of informally chat about some of the topics we talk about today or anything you might want to raise. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So as always, this opportunity roundtable that we go over is a fire hose of the stuff that's timely and we think might be useful to you. I want to encourage anybody on the call to put something in the chat. What are you seeing out there that other folks in the field could benefit from knowing about? So on the policy front, I don't know about you, but in the last month or so, I'm definitely hearing more and more fallout from budget cuts and how it's starting to affect real programs on the ground. Some of the ones that we are always excited about. The Regional Climate Collaborative saw a hit. Transformative Climate Communities saw a hit. So it's not, I don't think the party's over, but I think it, for the state at least right now, we just have to beware that there might be additional cuts coming and really make the most of the opportunities that are still coming down the pike. A lot of them are federal. So, you know, this slide deck is something you guys will get, and all of this is hyperlinked. Tila's going to throw some of the links that I'm talking about in the chat. This is kind of a cheat sheet of all of the opportunities. We're not going to have time to go over all of them. I'll highlight the ones that I have in yellow here for you. One that's coming up relatively soon is from Housing and Community Development. It's the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program. It's actually the 8th round of this program, and there's $675 million available. These are kind of larger scale projects or applications between 250,000 and 50 million. And so it provides grants or loans to projects that seek to integrate low carbon transportation and affordable housing with an emphasis on providing benefits to disadvantaged and low income communities. So they focus on 3 topic areas: transit-oriented development, integrated connectivity projects, and rural innovation project areas. So that one I think is worth looking at. Folks on the call are probably eligible. So localities, public housing authorities, redevelopment, successor agencies, transit agencies or operators, regional transportation planning agencies, and others, including tribes, are eligible for this pretty significant grant. Another one I wanted to highlight briefly, and this is new to the list, is from the Department of Energy, and it's a technology integration grant. There's only $15 million total available through this grant. But the idea is to advance deployment of technologies critical to achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions in the transportation sector. So folks on the call usually have told us they want to hear more about some of the transportation funding. I know it's definitely relevant to a lot of your climate action plan goals. This one has 3 topic areas, $5 million carved out for each. So $5 million for 5 awards for something they call Clean Cities Outreach, Engagement, and Technical Assistance. Another $5 million for only 2 to 3 awards for training on zero emission vehicle and infrastructure technologies, for critical emergency response workers, and another $5 million total funding for 5 to 10 awards under clean transportation demonstration and deployment. I think folks on the call are probably eligible for this one too. It's due, there's a concept paper due next month on the 12th, and then applications due April 30th. This one seems really competitive to me in terms of like the number of awards that are available. If you got a really hot idea and some really good partners, might be one for you. This next one that's highlighted, I'm going to spend a whole spotlight on. It's the EPA's Community Change Grants. So we'll get to that in just a minute. I do want to send out a little promo for our Civic Spark program. So CivicWell's Civic Spark program is looking now for host sites. And so if you're interested in hosting a fellow, this is somebody who's a basically subsidized extension of your staff that comes around for 11 months and supports your energy and climate work. Now would be a good time to check out this program and potentially apply by June 7th. I have experience having had a Civic Spark Fellow, and it was awesome. Everybody's strapped for capacity right now, so it's worth a look. And then some really good input opportunities coming up I wanted to highlight for you. For those of you that are local government representatives, we have our SLEEK call coming up next month in March, and I want to encourage you to register for those. If you haven't already, we'll be sending out another invitation. This is sort of invite only just for local government representatives on our list, and it's a way to talk directly with state agency representatives. This time, we're co-facilitating with Strategic Growth Council a whole conversation on reducing application burden, which if any of you have been writing grants and you're tired, this is for you. Okay, so a couple more. One is there's a comment period open right now for CARB's community engagement model. They're basically working to develop an approach to community engagement to build trust and strong relationships with communities and ensure equitable outcomes for all Californians. I think this one's interesting. If I can duplicate my DNA, I might actually write a comment on it. I'm curious if anybody out there is already submitting comment on this opportunity with CARB's community engagement model. If so, drop something in the chat. We may want to collaborate. This next one is also from CARB, and I'm unreasonably excited about it. This one is a research strategy roadmap. And we'll talk about that one in the BPC workshop. But basically, there's a survey out right now that you can submit comment or even a research concept to inform their long-term research priorities over at CARB. And based on our recent listening session with CARB, I think lots of ideas for ways that CARB could potentially support some of the things that came up in the barriers to local climate action conversations through research. So let's talk about that at the end. And I just wanted to make sure you knew about it because anybody could submit a concept or comments on that opportunity. Okay, so folks, I see folks introducing themselves over chat. Please continue to do that. And I would love, if you know of anything else that we've missed here, other opportunities for assistance or input, drop them here in the chat. Help us out. We miss things sometimes. Okay, let's go to the opportunity spotlight. That's a lot of words. Well, here's what I wanted to share. I don't know, some of you were at the Catalyst conference this month, which was awesome. And I did do a little brief overview of this program, but this is everywhere right now. So the EPA's community change grants is a hot topic right now. And I think because there's kind of a lot of money here, and I think it's really in line with folks on the call. So this one has a long trajectory, sort of. It's due in November of this year, November 21st. So you think, wow, I can put that one on the back burner. But it's interesting because it's on a rolling application basis. And I think it really benefits you to get it in early. We heard at the Catalyst conference, we heard from the EPA, and it's sort of more than a one-shot deal. So say if you apply and you don't get accepted, you kind of get a second chance, and you might even get some support to make it more fundable. So I'm excited about programs like that. But this one is interesting too because there's $2 billion available for it, but also because it's encouraging this coordination with CBOs. And I was a little wrong at the Catalyst conference, I realized. I thought it had to be CBO led, but if you look on the right, the eligible entities diagram, you definitely need to have a CBO involved. And some of you here on the call are CBOs. You could be the prime applicant, or the prime applicant could be one of these other partner entities like a tribe, a local government, or an institution of higher education. But you've got to have a combination of two entities. So two CBOs, a CBO and a tribe, a CBO and a local government, CBO and an institute of higher education. So really interesting. I kind of, in looking at the climate pollution reduction grant, I'm almost thinking like this is sort of a more CBO oriented way to try to tackle some of your climate action strategies. And so track one is where the majority of the dollars are. That is where they're calling it community-driven investments for change. And there's 150 grants available between 10 and $20 million awards. And that's what I have highlighted here on the right, track one requirements. And I just want to highlight, it's not a really simple application. There's a few things that are sort of unique in here. So you have to tackle at least one climate action strategy. I think that's in a plan. You also have to tackle a pollution reduction strategy. And then there's these other plans that you have to demonstrate, like community engagement and collaborative governance plan, a community strength plan, a readiness approach, a compliance plan. So there's some work to be done in this application. And I just threw in here the types of climate action strategies that they are looking for. Right up all of your alley. You guys probably have 100 projects sitting around wishing for funding that would probably fit here. But the good thing about this grant program too is that there is TA assistance, and it seems pretty robust. Pre-award assistance for application support, for project planning, and even post-award support. So I think this one's an interesting one to look at. There's enough awards to make it maybe worth your while. I think it will still be really competitive, but the dollar amounts are pretty good. So just wanted to make sure that one was in front of you. And put in the chat there if you're out there looking for partners or something. You know, this is a place where we can always talk about those things, or you can go fishing for friends. Okay, that's all I wanted to share with you on opportunities. Thanks for listening to that fire hose. I do want to get us over now to our panel. All right, so if you're like me, you may have been hearing the word NMEC a lot lately, and I heard it a lot because we just submitted comment to CEC's Homes program, and the conversation around different kinds of energy efficiency program designs has come up, and NMEC is something that I'm really new to, and I'm going to learn alongside of you guys. But NMEC stands for Normalized Metered Energy Consumption. It emerged as a result of a couple of California bills that the attempt is to streamline the incentives for energy efficiency. So it's a different approach to providing incentives for efficiency, more of a pay for performance approach that's data driven. And I don't know a whole lot beyond that, but our panelists do because they're running programs. So all 4 regional energy networks in California have some version of this program. They're running it for different sectors, and they're going to tell you a little bit about how it works and how it's going for them. And so I'm going to ask each of these guys, they're going to spend 4 minutes here up front, just kind of giving you an overview of how their program works and why they chose this model. And I'm going to start with Lauren Seymour. She is the Energy Coalition. She's with the Energy Coalition. She's the Assistant Director of Energy Services. She's going to talk about a program in the Inland Regional Energy Network, I-REN. So can we start with you, Lauren?
Great. Thanks, Angie, and hi, everyone. Again, Lauren Seymour on behalf of the Inland Regional Energy Network, or I-REN. And so today we'll be providing a brief overview of the NMEC program, one of two public sector programs that I-REN has. And we are tentatively planning to rebrand with a new public-facing name this year. So if you go to the next slide, please. So I-REN is a partnership among Coachella Valley Association of Governments, San Bernardino Council of Governments, and the Western Riverside Council of Governments. And the I-REN territory covers San Bernardino and Riverside counties, and any public agency within that territory that's serviced by SCE and or SoCalGas is eligible to participate in the public sector NMEC program under I-REN. So that includes local governments, but it also includes school districts, water districts, tribes, and other special districts. So if you go to the next slide, so the I-REN program is a site-based NMEC program. And so how it works essentially is that we measure the energy consumption at the meter before and after the project. And then we look at the data and we see, okay, what's the delta there, so that we incentivize the energy savings that are realized from the project itself. I will say we are an equity program, so we're focused on hard to reach and disadvantaged communities within the region. And the goal is really to work alongside agency staff to make sure that they have the funding that they need to complete these community projects. We do offer increased incentives for projects that realize higher savings, but also increased incentives for projects at important community facilities. So that might be a cooling center or maybe an emergency critical facility for the community. And so we want to recognize that and make sure that those projects have the funding they need to complete their projects. And I will come back to this for a future question, this slide. Thank you.
Lauren, do you want to say a little bit about why you all chose that design for your public agency program? Why you chose NMEC?
Sure. So I mentioned that I-REN has two public sector programs. So the first of which is a technical assistance program, and then the NMEC program. And the NMEC model was chosen because we really want to be able to fund holistic energy projects, and the NMEC model by kind of measuring the incentives at the meter to incentivize what is saved. It really lends itself to deep energy savings at projects, which can give those communities more energy and cost savings back into their pockets. So that's why we chose this model.
All right. Thank you, Lauren. All right, so we're going to go to our next panelist for his overview. So help me welcome Lowell Chu. He is technically with City and County of San Francisco, but he also serves as the Bay-REN program, business program manager. And so Lowell, on to you. How does your program work, and why did you choose NMEC?
Great. Thanks, Angie. And nice to see everyone on the call this morning. Yes, I help support the Bay-REN business program, which is a resource program that serves exclusively the hard-to-reach businesses in the Bay Area, at the hard-to-reach criteria as defined by our state regulator. And the Bay-REN business program is unique in that it uses a population-based normalized metered energy consumption approach, meaning that the energy savings calculation, the results are based on before and after energy usage as recorded by the meter, but calculated across a group of comparable sites rather than being modeled. In other words, the business that receives the energy efficiency intervention is compared to other businesses who have not, which is a result of some of the challenges that the Bay-REN business program experienced during the pandemic. So The program has been around since 2019. We decided to use an NMEC approach because it seems like the state regulator is driving a lot of resource programs towards that direction. And we also wanted to see if we can use this innovative approach to serve smaller businesses. Currently, as I mentioned, we've been a running program since 2019, but because of the pandemic, we have had a lot of challenges. So at the onset, we had a single contractor model where we contracted with one installer. It was going very swimmingly until the pandemic happened, and then it wiped out not only the projects that were in the pipeline, but also the implementer itself. So after some fits and starts, we decided to pivot to a multiple contractor platform approach. What's called a flex market, as termed by our partner Recurve Analytics, and it's been working really well. We relaunched the program mid 2023, and today we have over 100 projects, 100 small, hard to reach projects in our pipeline and completed, and we have nothing but optimism looking ahead. The flex market has been very helpful. The population NMEC approach, we pretty much tried every aspect of it, and it seems to be a very good application to the sector that we are serving. So I guess in closing, I would just say that the population NMEC approach, it's helpful to advance participation in the small, hard-to-reach business sector, and also against the backdrop of the way the regulator wants to see resource acquisition programs using meter-based approach. I think it's very appropriate, and it really just brings in the best of both worlds.
Thank you, Lowell. We'll come back to you for the next question. That was a great overview. We're going to now hear from April Price. So she is the Energy Portfolio Manager with the County of Santa Barbara. She's going to talk about a residential NMEC program that serves the Tri-County area, Santa Barbara County, Ventura, and SLO. Thanks for being here, April.
Thanks, Angie. Yeah, we can go ahead to the next slide. Just a reminder for folks, Tri-County Regional Energy Network, or 3CREN, is a collaboration between 3 neighboring counties on the Central Coast, and our programs are ratepayer funded, just like those of the other speakers today. And then just reiterating that we exist to focus our work on hard-to-reach customers. So next slide. The program that utilizes the NMEC model in our portfolio is our 3CREN Home Energy Savings Program. And that is a single family program. So it's made for homeowners to improve the energy performance of their home. And this is how we explain the program to the public. We say there's discounted pricing available from our enrolled contractors, and anything that you do to your home that saves energy, be it gas or electricity, is eligible for incentives when you work with an enrolled contractor. And the actual incentive depends on how much energy you save on your project. Next slide. And so we have a list of enrolled contractors, and we've been really gaining traction and getting local contractors involved, and we list those on our website. Next slide. And as I mentioned, one reason that we picked an NMEC model was that we didn't have to pick measures and the associated savings or incentives with them. So anything, as I mentioned, that saves energy is currently eligible for our program. Although I will note that we recently made the programmatic change to begin to disallow new gas equipment as a primary or secondary measure beginning in June. Next slide. So in designing our program with our implementer partner Recurve, we really wanted to make sure that we were hitting our some of our top 3 priorities, serving our hard to reach customers, supporting electrification, and ensuring that local contractors could participate in the marketplace. And so we took the incentive model that Recurve brought to us, which is, kind of core to their offering in the flex market. And we basically tweaked it to meet the market goals. So we're offering incentives for hard to reach customers that are 3 times higher than market rate. For our electrification projects, we fiddled with things to increase the value of therm savings and devalue the change in kilowatt hours. And then we also pay more for projects that utilize a local contractor. Next slide, please. And so what does this look like in practice? These are just some averages on the screen. We're paying for heat pumps about $3,000, heat pump water heaters about $1,000, and a big range for other projects. But just really noting that those hard to reach incentives are 3 times higher than the numbers shown on the screen, again, with a big range of what could be possible. Next slide. And just briefly wanted to tell you how this works because it's, I think it's key to understanding the program. So a contractor talks to the customer about a project that saves money. They estimate the energy savings with the project. And then once the project is complete, we made the programmatic decision to pay the contractor half of the estimated incentives associated with that project. And then we further require that the contractor pass that money to the customer. So we are looking to really dramatically bring down prices for the customers. And then from the contractor perspective, the contractors paid the balance of that estimated incentive over the year following the upgrade. And that performance payment, we call it, is based on the actual metered savings. So that's really the element of our program where we're really counting the kilowatt hours and therms. Next slide. So this is our vision. We hope that because of these elevated incentives, hard to reach customers will be prioritized, really prices will drop, and then that the contractors will really be motivated by the performance payments, that they'll staff up, that they'll sell more electrification projects, do more comprehensive upgrades, and at the end of the day, that our hard to reach customers will have something akin to a direct install like experience, especially because there are other programs such as the tech program that can be stacked with our offering. So thank you.
Thank you, April. That was super helpful, especially that incentive pathways slide, super clarifying. All right, last but not least, I would love to introduce Luana Medina. She is with the Environmental Initiatives Division Manager with LA County and for SoCalREN. She is also running an NMEC program. I'm going to tell you all about it. So thanks for being here, Luana.
No, thanks for having us. I'm actually going to share my screen because I realize I missed a slide in my original version. So bear with me, y'all. I'm a visual learner, so I like PowerPoints. All right, so I'm going to talk to you today about Southern California Regional Energy Network's public sector. We call it the Metered Savings Program. I have a pretty good idea that I-REN will be changing its nomenclature as well because most people don't understand what NMEC is or what it stands for. So metered savings sounds like, okay, I understand. I'm saving money at the meter. Right now, SoCalREN covers 13 counties. We cover over 20 million constituents across Southern California. Our public sector exists of 4 current programs, which includes the Metered Savings Program, but we're also bringing online 6 additional public sector programs that aim to not only serve over 800 public agencies, but hopefully more of those communities as well. So what is our Metered Savings Program? It's an NMEC or Normalized Metered Energy Consumption Program that offers public agency facilities served by Edison and SoCalGas the opportunity to go what we call below code and accomplish greater savings than they would have otherwise should they have entered into a normal type of rebate or deemed program. And really, essentially, it's supposed to help to drive these public agencies to achieve deeper energy savings throughout their facilities. One of the things that we identified in approaching NMEC was a lot of public agency facilities measures that they wanted to upgrade were not included in IOU programs. For instance, external lighting was a huge opportunity to save energy for public agency facilities. So really utilizing this type of approach helped to overcome that barrier that many of these public agencies were facing with IOU programs. So essentially, we kind of captured those stranded savings is what you might hear. You know,
Hey,
what
Luana?
are the, sure, go ahead.
Luana, we're seeing your.
Or are you seeing it
speaker.
weird?
Yeah, we're not seeing the presentation view. We're seeing it with your speaker notes and the,
Oh,
next
there you go.
slide and stuff.
Is that better?
Yes,
Sorry,
that's perfect. Thank you.
I'm not tech savvy, so this is good. Some of the eligible measures, of course, are retrofits that address not only electrification, but also behavioral retrocommissioning and operational measures, as well as building envelope measures. You know, we're really looking to help identify an improved incentive. So my team right now is working on developing what that looks like as far as serving more underserved facilities. Right now, this is our current incentive structure, but really looking at what we can do to really drive this idea of performance-based incentives throughout Southern California. What we have identified as best practices, of course, is we follow the NMEC rulebook guidance. We also have post-installation inspections for all measures because that has helped to institute this quality control. We also like to maintain this direct access to participating facilities who have energy management controls, and really look at the occupancy tracking because that has really been helpful in post-installation energy modeling. And last and most importantly, what we've identified is, NMEC is the best option to obtain more incentive funds for more energy efficiency applied. As I mentioned, one of the barriers of pre-IOU programs was this limitation on what could be upgraded and what could be incentivized. The NMEC performance-based model helps us overcome that barrier. Of course, and the lessons learned from implementing this program is really regarding access to data, and then identifying any of the usage anomalies once that data is obtained. Getting an accurate facility schedule, when working with public agencies, depending on the type of facility, you really have to identify what is the utilization of that facility and how it works within the community. Really looking at what different incentive levels we can utilize to help meet the hard to reach and underserved communities so that they participate more in the program. And then, of course, most importantly for public agencies is identifying low to no interest financing so that these capital projects can, get completed. That's really been a huge lesson learned in helping public agencies. So I think here's just a case study or a huge success. El Monte Union High School District. We actually had Energy Division come out and see this project and get an idea about what was done, how the program was actually applied to this facility, and also the great successes in the city of El Monte. So this was a really great project that we were able to leverage the metered savings program for SoCalREN. And that's it. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Luana. Well, super helpful to get an overview and see it in all these different sectors, all these different attempts. Maybe we can get that panel slide back up. It's making more sense. You're almost agnostic to measures, right? You get to be agnostic to measures. You just say, okay, get it done, get the savings, and we'll pay you for it. Before we move on to that next question, I think I want a little more clarity on It's like in California, we've thrown a lot of spaghetti at the wall when it comes to like what's going to work with incentives for energy efficiency. So what is it about this particular one that's different and is better than what we've tried before? Does anybody want to try it, to take a crack at that one?
This is Lauren. I can try to take a crack at that. So I think, Lowell mentioned it, several speakers mentioned it, but really just simplifying. I think especially for I-REN, we work with the public sector, so public agencies, and they are strapped for time and resources. So when it comes to energy efficiency projects, simplifying that is the best thing we can do for them. And so I think this is helpful because we say, okay, it doesn't matter what you do to reduce your consumption, just that you reduce your consumption. And so I think that can be a lot easier to digest rather than previous iterations of energy programs in the state. We're very focused at the measure level. And so this is hopefully easier and will hopefully result in more savings.
Thank you. That makes sense. I want to remind folks, please do add questions to the chat because I have 2 more questions to ask and then we're going to go to yours. And my next question, Luana actually did a good job already sort of answering. It was a good segue because I'm asking what successes and lessons are you already experiencing? These programs are relatively new, but I'd love to hear more about, what you're learning and how it's going. Maybe we can go backwards. Let's go to April.
Yeah, well, we have had about 400 homeowners participate in the program, and about half of those have been heat pump projects. So that's been great to see that, modified incentive program, work. I would say one big learning is the handholding required to enable local contractors to participate in this program. The method in which that has been done has changed a little bit. The market is meant to attract this group called aggregators, which work with local contractors or on their own to submit projects. It's a little bit much to get into here, but I think by laying the groundwork for these initial successes with local contractors, we attracted attention from larger aggregators, one in particular that is really driving a lot of this work now and doing the work that we were previously doing to hold the hands of these local contractors and get them the money more quickly so that they could pass the savings immediately to local customers.
Yeah, that seems like a really important piece of a residential program. I'm curious if others resonate with having to figure out the upfront cost piece. But yeah, who else would like to take that question on successes and lessons? How about Lowell? Do you want to go next?
Sure, Angie. I just in terms of the success, I would just like to not sound like a broken record, but in the 6 months, we have over 100 projects, hard to reach projects in the business community, both installed and in the pipeline, and that every element of our Bay-REN business program has been tested and proved to be working. Some of the lessons we've learned through the deployment, especially during the COVID time, was that it was just very, very challenging to do any kind of efficiency projects, especially with the uncertainties that the pandemic created. But out of that, the silver lining is that we were able to quickly pivot to a different model, pivot to the flex market. I think that's also another success. We were able to adapt um, and utilize a new format of engaging with what April mentioned, the aggregators, the installation contractors, and having that diversity of installation contractors really helped the Bay-REN business program because each of them bring a different specialty to the market. And some of the speakers mentioned that, we are measure agnostic, and that's great, but it only works when you have contractors that are able to do a diversity of measures like lighting, refrigeration, HVAC. And I think that multiple contractor approach really serves well to expose our program to these diverse contractor pool. And, like Lauren mentioned, the simplicity as an advantage to the NMEC program. I think it also simplifies a lot of our administration because, previously we scrutinized a lot of the savings estimates. We really scrutinized a lot of the forecast values. Now we still look at them, but the proof is in the meter. The proof is in the meter result. And there's a statistical industry approved way to do the population NMEC, and the regulator has set out guidance on how to run these programs. So I think the simplicity expands well beyond the measures, but also to how we administer these programs. And there are just savings to be had from reducing those costs.
Thank you, Lowell. That's super helpful. And these programs seem like they're going really well. How about you, Lauren? You want to tell us about I-REN successes?
Sure. Yeah, if we don't mind putting up the 4th slide to chat through some of the incentives. So I think our NMEC program might be the newest one here on the panel. So our program is still in its infancy. We kind of kicked off implementing last year, but we did several regional orientations throughout the 2 counties and really made sure that member agencies understood the program offerings. But we also asked for feedback from our member agencies. And so from that feedback, I think one of the biggest things we have learned is that our member agencies prioritize like deep energy savings, and they prioritized projects at important community facilities. So that is why we designed the incentives the way that we did for I-REN. So you can see here, there is kind of a base rate, and it is based on KWH, KW, or therm savings. But then we have what we're calling kickers to really input that the values from member agencies into the design. So if the project occurs at an important community facility, that incentive doubles. And then the more that is saved at the facility, the higher the incentive rate. So I think we'll have a lot of lessons learned and things to share in the future when we have much more projects going through the program. But for now, one of our biggest lessons was just what our member agencies want, and then putting that into our design and making sure that that's reflective.
Well, all right. Thank you, everyone. It sounds like a lot of the folks on this call, the people in jurisdictions around the state, have access. If you're in a regional energy network territory, which a lot of you are already, then you have access to these programs already. But my final question for whoever wants to take it is, looking ahead, should this model be scaled up by other local and state agencies? And if so, who's really a good fit for this kind of a program, and what opportunities are you seeing to scale up the model? And I'll leave it open to whoever feels compelled.
I'm happy to jump in, Angie. I think that this could go in a number of directions for sure. One reason that I think our program has been successful is this it's an open market program, but we didn't always treat it just that way. We didn't just say open the doors and let whoever wants to play come and play. We really tried to reach out to our local players to hold their hands in connecting. So in thinking about this being done, at a state level or by, who has the capacity or interest really to modify the flex market, or it doesn't have to be the flex market, that's just what Recurve offers, but any NMEC model to be open market, but also assisted to make sure that that little players are not left out of the equation, and that equity remains a top priority for implementation.
So meaning there's a big role for proximity and trusted people to handhold and support. And if you have it too big of a scale, it might be too remote. Is that what I'm hearing?
Thanks
Yeah.
for including.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else want to take that question?
Angie is low. I wanted to just build up what April said. I think one opportunity for this approach, because it is measure agnostic and it is, to April's point, like, really build a qualified pool of aggregators. I think there's an opportunity to help smaller installation companies get into the flex market or any type of that platform where NMEC programs are available. And so the handholding would come from, providing those contractors with the resources and the information needed to really fully engage with our programs and new programs, so that there's everyone benefits from it, whether it is the participant, the installer, and us as the program administrators.
Thank you. Just given the time, I think I want to move into some of the audience Q&A. We're getting some really good questions here. From Tom. Tom's asking, would it make sense to offer the upfront incentive to the contractor and offer the operating behavior incentive to occupants? Interesting. Does anybody feel like that's a question for them?
If we're thinking about it from a residential perspective, I think that gets a little bit confusing. It's already difficult to make the contractor care about this potential large sum of money that is coming to them. And even if they're doing a large portfolio of projects. So I would assume that with a homeowner, it's even harder to make that argument that, well, pay for it now, but you're going to get paid over the course of the year, just because people, in my experience, care about the investment rather than money in the future. And we want contractors to be paid based on the quality of their work.
This one kind of goes along with it because I think it's maybe tied. It's asking more about residential customers. It says, Crow's asking, how long are the incentives paid to customers? I'm familiar with the MEETS model that uses long-term PPAs at a project level, but curious how this works for ratepayers in general. So April, I don't know if that's best for you or someone else.
So how long are they paid to homeowners?
Sounds like in your model, it's not homeowner because it's to the contractor, but maybe for some of the other folks, it is paid to like the public facilities, like to the public agency over time.
Right, just to reiterate how it works for our program, half of the expected incentive is paid to the contractor, but that has to be passed to the customer. So the customer is just getting a discount, we hope. They are getting in some sense a discount, but we don't control pricing. But they're getting a lower price on their invoice from their contractor, because the contractor is required to pass that upfront payment to their customer.
And I can just answer that question for I-REN's program. So we focus on public sector. So after the project completes, we use about 3 months of consumption data from the meter, and then an initial incentive is paid to the public agency. And then for 1 year after the project completes, we're monitoring that data, and then based on the savings realized, then the public agency receives kind of their final incentive payment. So it's about a year after the project.
Got it.
It's also about a year for the business program as well. The contractor receives 20% of the eligible incentive upfront, and then over the next 4 quarters, they'll get performance payment based on the meter results.
Juana, is that about right for your program as well?
Yeah, sorry. Don't mind the mute button. Yeah, sounds about right.
So about right for you too. Yeah, everybody's saying about a year, you capture about a year of data and pay out the final amount after a year. Okay, so I think I'll go to Miriam. So happy to see folks from the California Energy Commission here. She's asking, can the panelists please talk a little bit about incentive splits between contractors and customers and who ends up financing the costs until the full incentive is paid out? Anybody want to take that one?
I can start. So for I-REN, the NMEC incentives can be paired with other funding and finance opportunities. So like I mentioned, it is paid in full to the public agency after the project. And so the other I-REN public sector program is focused on technical assistance, and that also includes support with applying for funding and financing. That could be external grants, it could be on-bill financing offered through the IOUs. So we offer support there to help kind of with that bridge financing until the full incentive is paid out.
Anyone else want to chime in on that before we go to the next?
I can speak a little bit for the Bay-REN business program. We don't prescribe how the incentives are split between the contractor and customer because we recognize that different contractors have different business models. Some share the incentives fully, some share them partially. Some act like an energy service company. So we are agnostic to how the incentives are split between the participant and the installation contractor.
And then Alice is asking, actually, Lowell, this one goes back to you. Can you tell us more about what Recurve Analytics does in each program?
Yes.
And that was one for April as well.
Yes, I can start. Happy to. Thanks for the question, Alice. So, Recurve Analytics provides two primary functions. The first function is to provide the measurement and verification services. That's getting the data from the utility, analyzing it, and then making the incentive recommendation, whether it is the upfront payment or the performance payment. The second primary scope of work that Recurve does is operate the flex market. And flex market is what I kind of term it as like the platform where the aggregators or the installation contractors bring their projects, bring those energy savings to our program, and go undergo a process of evaluation. And once it's approved, installed, then we make that payment. A subset of that flex market is also accounting. So Recurve does a great job of keeping us organized around the payments, the project savings, project details like the address, and also beyond the project itself, gives us a zoomed out view of our portfolio and our progress to date, understanding how our program is achieving its goals, and enabling us to use that information to make tweaks to our program. I'll turn it over to you, April.
I think you summarized it really well. Thanks, Lowell.
Thanks so much, Lowell. This is Alice. Follow-up question. Did you say, I thought I heard you say that they perform a lot of the data analytics and aggregation. Did you say that when the contractor brings the project into the platform, and they presumably, retrieve the energy use data from the utilities, do they actually perform some energy modeling or energy auditing to define measures for the installer to install?
Yeah, so the measures are installed by the installation contractors. What Recurve does is they ingest the data from the utility company, and then they do the comparison modeling, right? So the before and after, and then make that savings recommendation associated with the incentive payment. So they do it. So to your question, yes, they do the modeling, the before and after, but they don't like direct the type of measure for the installer
So the installer is actually recommending and
yes,
putting
exactly.
together the packages of measures that they want to install, and then they simply do the modeling.
That's right. That's right.
Estimated modeling, and then they cross-check, with actual performance when they have.
That's right. That's right. And I think you just reminded me, Alice. I think another function that Recurve does well for our program is that they also help the contractors. They also provide that handholding throughout they sign up to be a participating contractor. They do the vetting, they do the contracting, and then they also help them get their projects in. They also help them identify where, hey, you're missing this, provide that. I think they do a lot of that to facilitate a well-functioning platform.
Thank you.
I'll just jump in and clarify that some of the modeling does fall on the shoulders of the contractor, the aggregator, because they do need to submit the expected energy savings associated with their project.
Well, those were great questions, everybody. I really appreciate it. We do have, in a few minutes, we're going to go to our bonus breakout where we can continue to answer some of these questions. If some of our panelists are going to hang around for that, we'll get through what we can. There is this one question maybe folks can quickly in the chat. Somebody's asking if there's a map that they could be linked to that lets us know if we are in a qualifying area. I don't know if there's like one, NMEC map out there for all the RENs and other agencies that are offering it. Probably not right now, but if you have a map and you can help people understand if they're in your territory, that would be great to throw in the chat. And I want to thank all of our panelists for being here and making the time and helping us, helping explain really what's an exciting and very promising new program approach, something new to the efficiency space and one that's showing really nice results. So I'm happy to see it, and like always seems to be led by us locals. So way to go out there. Okay, so let's go to the BPC workshop for just a moment, and we won't have a ton of time for this piece, but I did want to circle back to this opportunity for input that I had mentioned. So this is again through the California Air Resources Board. I summarized it as the research strategy roadmap, but it's got a lot longer name. Basically, they're looking for your input from around the state on what concepts or topics they may do research on in the future. There's a virtual meeting to provide input on February 29th. And there's also this survey where you can provide comment or concept submissions, and that's due on April 10th. And the survey has these 3 options available in there. So if you're somebody who's got like a full-fledged research concept ready to fly, you could submit a 300-word project concept. Air Resources Board would be great for emission reduction kinds of research. Option 3 is the one I'm thinking of doing, on behalf of SEEK. And so it says, I would like to submit a long-term research priority for consideration in the 5-year strategic research plan covering 2025 to 2030. And my thought was, those of you that joined us for the Barriers to Climate Action listening sessions we had with CARB over the last year, there's a lot of things that came out of that this might be a good platform for, right? This might be a good way to make some progress on some of the things that were raised, like, VMT data, developing some kind of a data tool or portals for energy and VMT data, or conducting some sort of a statewide inventory or map of emissions by jurisdiction. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work through this pathway, but it's worth suggesting some things here. So if you want to hang around for the bonus breakout, this is another topic we can talk a little bit more about. You can hand me your suggestions and I can include it in my submission, or you can go ahead and just do it yourself if you have your own ideas. And then last point I want to make here is that don't forget, you actually have till February 21st now to submit a call for a session proposal for the SEEK forum. So if you want to run your own session, we would love to hear your ideas and your best practices. So please do, you got till the 21st. Next slide. So this way I'll just be saying farewell. Thank you for joining us for another Learn. Our next one is on March 12th. And if you ever have ideas for topics you would like to see at Learn, please reach out anytime or feel free to share this invitation with others.